Pathmonk is the AI for website conversions. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in the buying journey separates you from the competition online. Pathmonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by more than 50%. Add Pathmonk to your website in seconds, let the artificial intelligence do all the work, and increase conversions by 50% while you keep doing marketing as usual. Check us out on pathmonk.com. All right, everybody, welcome back to Pathmonk Presents. Today, we are joined by Jasmeet Sraw. He's the head of growth of Insite AI. And Jasmeet, I'm excited about our conversation today and glad to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Good, and thank you, Rick. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it.
Of course, of course. So let's jump right into it.
Perfect.
I just gave a very quick intro about you and Insite AI. But can you tell us a little bit more about your company and its approach to driving growth and sales?
Sure, I can definitely do that. So Insight AI is the partner of choice for anything related to data tech and AI for CPG and retail industries. We've been helping, a lot of the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 set in CPG and retail drive growth, leveraging data and AI. Our genesis has been in creating our own enterprise revenue growth management and category management platform from scratch. And we've layered that and topped that up with additional services and solutions that fit an enterprise, especially in the CPG and retail industries. So we've been here for 7 years. We're seeing great traction with our customers. We continue to invest in them and on ourselves to really grow the company.
Right. Okay. That's very interesting. And it sounds like, obviously working with Fortune 500 companies, there'll be, I would assume a long sales cycle for you guys, but, correct me if I'm wrong, right? I'm just assuming here, but the challenges of working with such companies would be higher and it requires a higher level of problem solving and, working at a higher level of operations too, right? So, I'm curious, which type of industries or customers are the best fit for Insight and what you guys do at the moment?
Right. Like I mentioned, two industries that really kind of fit the bill, and that's where we've kind of invested our efforts. One is the consumer products and goods industry, right? That's where we thrive. And you kind of correctly pointed it out to work with the Fortune 500 or even the Fortune 1000 companies in that specific industry. There needs to be a high degree of understanding of the industry and problems pertaining or specific to that industry. So, we have a great team that actually comes from the industry and can really understand, relate, and contextualize the problems they are facing and solve it with the technology that we've built, right? So it's a great kind of combination of talent and tech that we have within the company that can help, in the CPG and retail industry. So yes, you're correct on that front. In terms of the sales cycle, I think again, it starts off with the problem that you're facing, and if we are able to kind of proactively help the client customers really curate the problem statement correctly and say and articulate it and say, hey, you're saying this, but do you mean okay, X, Y, and Z, right? And from there,
Right.
it becomes much easier for them to work with us because they're like, hey, you guys get it, right? You understand the data behind it, you understand the business context. More importantly, you understand the business utility of how this will kind of work for us, right? And that's where we, try to kind of uh, stay away from the traditional sales cycle, which is like, hey, I've got a solution. Does it fit your need? And
Hmm.
it's a straight yeah or nay. And at most times it'll be a nay because you've really not broken down the problem statement. You've not really hit the right metrics, which the customer really needs to achieve, right? And then you get into that traditional longer sales cycle. So we try to kind of be very pointed and concise. And that's also, we identify the right prospects, right? We don't want to be everything to everyone. We don't want to sound like all the other solution services providers out there. So we keep ourselves very targeted and very specific to the industry and the people within the industry that can harness the true potential that Insight AI offers with its services and solutions.
Oh, okay, interesting. So, you actually mentioned, being specific with your target, and I think that's so essential, right? It could help people in sales, could help people in marketing, and all across. Um, what kind of, who's your target customer, and what kind of challenges do you help them overcome?
So, traditionally, our primary set of audiences within these industries have been within sales, category management, revenue growth management. That's where we saw a lot of ask, and we saw the need for, technology and automation to do many things that they do in their everyday lives, right? How do they plan? How do they forecast? How do they address variability in demand? And how do they work with how do consumer goods and manufacturers work with retailers, in planning exercises, what gets to shelf, what should you promote, how much you should price at? We saw it was happening in a lot of disparate ways, in different tools, and there was not one cohesive, well orchestrated platform where you could essentially do this, right? So that's the
Mm,
opportunity which we saw, and we leverage tech and AI to create that unified platform for our CPG customers, which they love. And from there on, we also understood that, hey, there are other associated or adjacent areas where there are challenges before business teams can leverage the platform, right? So logically, let's say the CIO office. Now that's where all the systems are, that's where all the data is. So, logically, it made sense for us to service those customers in the CIO offices too, because we now
yeah.
could say that, hey, we built the technology, we have the talent, let us help you orchestrate the systems and the data better. So, right. So we started working with the CIO office there. And when we think downstream now, even if we just work with, say, a few teams, there's always a cascade effect, right? If we
Mm,
are working with the sales team, they do need to kind of coordinate and orchestrate with let's say, the marketing team. So, very quickly, marketing starts to ask questions of us, which we are able to now solve at a much better pace with much better accuracy in terms of their marketing investments and optimization, right? So that's where, CMOs have started to kind of work with us and say, hey, this truly feels like a holistic approach to problem solving across the enterprise than just having many, many point tools, solutions, and services addressing multiple needs, and we're still not growing business, right? So that's how we kind of
mm,
work, and that's how we see this, and we kind of become a conduit across the enterprise. Starting from your technology teams to your business teams, and to actually kind of your field teams who are, using that information or intelligence to drive actions on the field, right? So
right.
yeah, in essence, yes, we started off with a smaller group, but we've expanded to other groups, and that's not just because we want to work with everyone or be everything to everyone. The idea is, where does the interconnectedness, the interdependencies lie, so we can actually be a true partner than just being another vendor in the ecosystem.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And I think it also goes back to what you said earlier about, what specific problems do you solve? And, it doesn't matter if it fits your target persona down to a T. If they have that problem, then they might become part of your target persona, so to speak. So, um,
Yeah.
it's interesting to know how, you serve CIOs and then CMOs, and it might be something else that will come out over time, right? So.
Yeah, and a lot of times, people think it's their problem only, but when you kind of, that's where you start breaking down the problem, you're like, hey, we actually need to go to talk to the technology team, because I think this is to be solved there, than actually the problem being with you. So I think that also kind of helps them understand that, okay, yeah, it's not just my problem, it's a company-wide problem, which needs, working with other teams and helping them resolve certain issues too, so it can kind of become enterprise-wide problem-solving exercise than just your problem, right? So I think
Yeah.
that also kind of helps.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let's say I'm a CMO, right? And I need Insight AI in my life. I just don't know it yet, right?
Right.
So what kind of I guess, well, in what way would I be able to find you? And this kind of, goes into your customer acquisition channel. So how would I be able to then find out about Insight AI and work with you guys?
Sure. No, I think initially it was truly, the old adage of word of mouth, because when
Mm,
we started off as a company and we started working with some of the bigger brands, and they loved it and they kind of spoke about it to their industry peers, and it's like, hey, why not kind of have Insight AI work with us too? Uh, and today, I think it's also a matter of network effect that we leverage, right? And network
yeah.
effect, not just through word of mouth, but then, how do you ensure you increase and leverage your presence across different platforms, right? And in
Hmm.
market, it could be as simple as just doing your LinkedIn right? But also saying that, hey, I'm present at the right industry events where people can see Insight AI live in action, right? So
Hmm.
those are some channels that we've traditionally used, but typically we've seen, when people search, especially when executives in CPG industries or retail industries search for these specific problem statements, we do rise up in the search results just because we are very, very specific to what we are solving for these industries, right? So it becomes easier for them to find us. And then our CEO and our teams, like I said, have spent many years in the industry, so they're pretty well kind of known. So if you kind of search for Insight AI and AI or AI in CPG, you certainly see our CEO pop up everywhere.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a good thing to have, right? That personal brand that plays into the company brand. You kind of have to have both these days, and I think that's great. I mean, I'm just curious about, so what kind of role would you say your website then plays in your overall sales funnel? Because obviously, part of our audience, there's a lot of SaaS founders, marketers.
Yes,
So yeah, I'm just curious to know where does it sit in your sales funnel?
I think it is foundation, right? Uh, because even if I know someone or if I'm kind of prospecting someone, right, they're going to first go
Hmm.
to the website. So if your website truly doesn't say or relay the same things that we are talking about, then it's a miss, right? So yes, our website is truly foundational in that aspect, and and it has to evolve, right? I see many companies do a website once and forget about it, even though they
Hmm.
continue to do good and better things in the market, right? They forget to kind of translate that onto the website. So I think that continuous evolution of the website and continuous, and it's not just about posting content or updating content, right? It's actually
Yeah.
continuous evolution of your website. Hey, does it look and feel like you talk about AI, right? Does it really translate that brand value, that value proposition when people go to your website and search for things? So I think yes, it's foundational, and you'll soon see our new avatar come up early 2025, right? Because we feel it's the right time to revamp our web properties too, right? And really kind of translate the value that we've delivered and we continue to deliver for our customers, right? And the website says all. Even if I like know a person and it's literally my friend buying from me, they will still go to my website.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. Well, sure, I relate first and foremost, but mm, pretty much all of our audience will relate to this because they're in the weeds every day, let's say, of trying to make their website work, and most of the people we work with also. But that messaging, the offering, everything that's in it, and your brand, they're essential. So
Right.
I also want to hear it from you, from your perspective and your experience as a head of growth, right? So maybe it might be just a little bit detached as opposed to a CMO, for example, but you
Right.
still have opinions, I think, in terms of what makes a great converting website. Can you share anything about that?
Yes, I think one like I said, it truly needs to be a replica of what you're talking about in the market, right? How you are positioning what you kind of do for specific audiences, specific industries. It really needs to say the same thing, right? It cannot
Mhm.
be just a combination of, uh, you know, good looking content or good looking pictures and words. It truly needs to say it, even if it's simple, right? Even if it says it in 4 lines. So I truly believe it has to be a replica of your sales teams, of your consulting teams, how they talk to prospects, how they work with customers. It truly needs to translate to simply that, right? Uh, that's one. Two, it should also, talk to, for a lack of better term, I'll use the word layman, but what I mean is that not everybody in a enterprise understands all the specific words related to solutions or technical aspects, right? But if you're able to convert those into bite-sized, simplistic words that they can say, oh, that's the problem they're solving for, right? Even if your solution
Mm.
is AI-driven, machine learning platform, it truly needs to say, hey, this is the problem we are solving for, this is the impact we are carrying, right? So again, kind of break it down simply rather than trying to kind of make it look heavy in terms of
Mm.
terminologies, tools, and technologies. I think it needs to be about information, insights, and intelligence.
That's a wonderful point. I think, it doesn't have to get to a point where, explain it to me like I'm 5 year old, but it has to have a level of simplicity where even if I land on your website and I know exactly what you're talking about, I don't want to go off it, with a headache. I want to understand exactly what you do, right? And
Right,
that you don't need to use all the technical jargon. I just want to understand, can you solve my problem? Can you help me with this? And if the answer
right.
is yes, how do I get in touch with you? And that's obviously I'm simplifying things, right? But
Yeah.
should be with that in mind, I think, right? So it sounds to me
Yes.
like that's the direction you would take. And yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, and I
Um,
think it kind of ties up neatly with how we deliver to our customers, right? Yes, I could
mm,
be working with the marketing team, I could work in the sales team or the CIO team, right? Eventually, they want to hear the outputs and outcomes in a language they're comfortable with, right? Because if they're not
right.
going to be able to understand the outputs in a language they're comfortable with, then they're not going to use it, right? So eventually, the return on investment of working with us will probably come to a naught. And it's the same, on the website when these personas go to our websites to find out more about us, right? They should just be able to understand in a language which works for them. Oh, so for a CIO, these guys are great at data harmonization and data engineering, as simple as that, right? Or they're great
Mm.
at understanding systems and data sets related to CPG industry, right? So the CIO should be able to take that away than me telling them that I work with every tool and technology in the world and have so many people around to do that. Instead, he should the key takeaway should be what's the outcome for me, right? What's in it for me?
Right. That's a good point. And speak to me like I'm a human, right?
Yeah,
That's the thing, right?
even if it's AI driven.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's a challenge, right? But
Right.
staying on the on the topic of humans, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about you as a leader, Jasmeet, if you don't mind. Can you share with our audience what your day to day is like as a head of growth? What are the key tasks you focus on? If you're
Right.
in any kind of meetings or things like that.
Sure. I think it's all about driving growth. Again, that's a very broad word, but if I break it down, essentially it's about I spoke about, hey, we are expanding our remit, we expanding our offerings to these industries that we cater to. So it's all about what are those specific problems that should be helping these customers solve and taking them to market, right? That's really
Hmm.
my first thought in the day is, okay, what's top of mind, what's critical in these industries for these leaders, which we should proactively be talking about solving or solve, right? And creating the right go-to-market for that specific need. Because yes, you could have a lot of sales meeting, but if you don't have, uh, I would say, the value proposition or the actual outputs to back it up, you know, then it's hard to kind of translate that message correctly to the customers and prospect. So first is about, hey, what is it we should be looking at solving or solve, and kind of really exemplify that. So I think
Mhm.
that's the first order of day that I'm always thinking about. The second is, talk to as many executives in the industry as possible. And these just don't have to be your prospects or your target audiences. These can be people from whom you gather inputs, feedback, right? Validate the messages that you want to take to market or the problems you want to solve for the industry, because they will give you, a very, very, I would say, blunt feedback and say
Mm.
that's nothing or that's great, right? So that pretty much, so when I kind of speak to industry executives, customers, or prospects, the idea is not just to sell. The idea is to gather inputs and feedback that will make us better, in our selling proposition or in our, marketing motions, etc. The last bit of it is, yes, it's all about, hey, create more revenue channels, create more avenues for growth, right? Get to a wider set of audiences within the customers that we work with, and also to, other prospects in the industry, right?
Right.
So that's definitely there, because the idea is, uh, you know, at the end of the day, a very cluttered market in AI today, right? And you need to break through the clutter. And the only way you can do that is, yes, you can drum up a lot of marketing dollars and do many fancy things. But if you're not there in the market, talking to these key executives and knowing, you know, what keeps them awake,
Mm.
it's hard to break through, right? So really kind of talking to them and increasing our avenues of reaching out to them, right? Directly, indirectly, through our networks, right? That's really key for me, right? That's really my goal, is to create those avenues to increase our growth potential, to increase our revenue potential, and really, really be the only trusted partner for data and AI for CPG industry, because I want to be top of mind, right? When these industry executives think, hey, I have a problem to solve for, and I think I need somebody who understands data and AI, Inside AI should pop to their mind first, right? So that's really my goal.
Right, right. Well, it sounds like a full day first and foremost, but more than anything, I'm glad to hear that, there's this component of continuous feedback gathering and speaking to people, being in touch with them, trying to understand what they want and what they need really. And it's kind of like, reading, you mentioned reading into things, right? So
Right.
someone will tell you something and it actually means something else, and it's your job to kind of understand, okay, how does this translate to grow for us? And I mean, that's interesting in general, but I think the human component of it, and we go back to it, it's like essential, sounds to me. Like,
Yes. Yeah,
so,
and keeping it honest, right? That's a big part of being the human component, because yes, you could say a lot of things that make people feel nice and good about what they're saying, but it's also kind of keeping them honest, and that shows that, okay, these guys really, really understand the industry and it's functioning very well, for them to
right.
tell us that you're thinking about it the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, since we're coming to the end of the interview, just meet. We usually run a round of rapid fire questions, so I would love to jump into them.
Okay.
And the only rule that we have here is that we try to keep it short and crisp. So, are you ready for that?
Yeah, let's try it, and you have the ability to edit later, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
All right. So, what's the last book you've read?
Singularity is narrow.
Okay. What stuck with you?
Their singularity is actually an error. We keep reading and thinking about things that technology and AI is going to drive. It's actually happening, and we don't see all of it.
Hmm, interesting. Well, let's keep it on that track then. So, if there are no limits, there are no boundaries to technology, then what's one challenge in your role that you want to be solved as soon as possible?
I think someone who can take all the different tools that are available to us and just make it one, right? So I don't know, you have to log into multiple subscriptions and go to many. places which say we are AI tools, but still need to orchestrate all of that information to take action.
Okay, that's a
So
good one.
one-stop shop kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say that actually. If it, well, this is kind of in line with that one, but if you could fully automate one task that you do every day in your sales process, in talking about growth, um, what would it be, and how would it free up your time?
Yeah, I think it's all about orchestration and harmonization, right? We're collecting and disseminating so much information throughout our day, right, for our work. And yes, there are pointed tools to do all of that, but eventually, what's the real goal and objective, right? Is for me
Hmm.
to drive growth. So, hey, of all the petabytes or terabytes of information that is generated in a day in my dealings, right? What are the top three things I want to take away? Right? Which will either help me get better at my day today or tomorrow, right? And not, and because otherwise, what I call brain chatter, which never switches off because you're always thinking, okay, what
Oh
am I
yeah.
going to wake up and focus on, right? So if somebody can free up my brain chatter in the after hours, that's really the goal.
Okay, that's a good one. Maybe this is related to the last question, really, but it sounds like a lesson, right? Looking back at your career in sales and growth, what's one piece of advice you give to your younger self starting out in this field today?
I would just say focus on relationships, right? The transactions will happen, but keep the relationships, stay close to them, follow them, right? Because it eventually pays off.
Okay, that sounds like the theme of this episode was relationships, and being a human, basically. So, Jasmeet, I want to thank you for being on the show with us today. It was really insightful, and I want to give you a last word also. So, my final question would be: if someone forgets everything about the interview today, then what is the one thing they should remember about your company?
That we're here to solve your problems in a humanly fashion. That's all they should take away. Yes, everyone comes with the data, the tools, and the technology, but if you're not able to put ourselves in your shoes and look at it that way from that lens, I think that's the only thing you should take away, that we are the ones who do that and do that every day.
Perfect. Let's end with that then. All right. Thank
All
you
right.
again, Jasmeet, and I hope
Thank
to
you
see you
so
again
much,
on the
Rick,
show.
and happy holidays.
You too. Bye bye.
All right.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.